Fox and even CNN like competes for views by running constant 24-hour news cycles based upon fear, division, outrage, and panic, probably to like sell ads. So it's not just about the Capitol riot.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. First of all, I don't agree with what you're saying.
Journalist Andrew Callahan of Channel 5, formerly known as All Gas No Breaks, is calling out CNN to its face. And as you can tell, Don Lemon was not pleased by that.
No.
But was Andrew's criticism of corporate media valid? Well, we'll tell you what we think shortly. But first, let's talk a little more about the confrontation, give you a little context about what they were discussing. Now, Andrew Callahan was on CNN specifically to promote his upcoming documentary, which is titled This Place Rules, which will debut on HBO Max on December 30th. Now, the whole documentary is about what led to the Capitol riots on January 6, 2021. Now, Andrew interviews plenty of right-wingers in the documentary, including Alex Jones, but he insists that they aren't the only reason why the country is so divided, right? Like he makes an argument actually that we make on this show often, that what happened with Trump, what happened on January 6th, that's really a symptom of a deeper issue that needs to be dealt with. So let's watch the full exchange and then we'll discuss.
The movie's not just about like the Capitol riot and all that. It's also about like media echo chambers. You know what I mean? And like the dangers of the 24-hour news cycle, and how I think mainstream media like Fox and even CNN like competes for views by running constant 24-hour news cycles based upon fear, division, outrage, and panic, probably to like sell ads. So it's not just about the Capitol riot.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. First of all, I don't agree with what you're saying, but I'm not exactly sure of how that played into people going into the Capitol and rioting on January 6th. There's nothing fake about CNN.
Oh, I'm not saying like fake news. I'm just saying ramping people up and increasing division during that period of time. Just watching people kind of fall down the rabbit hole and be pushed into action and like just, yeah, falling down the conspiracy rabbit hole.
Yeah, I think more people would consider, what's happening online and what happened with the former president and the messaging that he was putting out there and QAnon and so forth.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree 100% with that as well.
So I think what he was touching on there was important and accurate, because what you probably, first of all, the point about filter bubbles is demonstrably true, right? If you are in a right-wing media filter bubble, meaning that's the only perspective that you're being offered up online, well then you're only gonna get that one perspective. And that one perspective demonizes the other side, and vice versa, right? And what sells in media, remember, these are for-profit media organizations that are looking to get as much viewership as possible. And the way they do that is by drumming up drama. Drumming up, whatever blood sport, there's like a blood sport feel to politics today that I think is in fact leading to the division we're seeing in the country.
But I think it's actually much worse than that. So look, I thought Andrew was, to be honest, too soft when Don Lemon pushed back.
You better be careful, he's coming for you, all gas, no brakes.
Okay, I'm right here. Look, first of all, I loved how Don Lemon was outraged.
He did not like that.
I disagree with that. I do declare. What do you mean, mainstream media? Is that not fake at all? But it is, Don, it is. And it doesn't mean Don's a bad guy, okay? But he doesn't even realize the role he plays in the theater. So now, the two parts of the theater that are most important that leads to the original conclusion that Andrew drew was, number one, mainstream media is fake. It's corporate news. It's not objective news. They just take the status quo, pro-corporate position and call it objective. They call anything that is for change radical and different and wrong. They do it all the time. In fact, you can see it with your own eyes. I just told you, you'll see it everywhere now, right? Anything that is keep the system the same, the people at the top remain at the top, mainstream media will characterize as very positive. Anything that changes the system, very negative. And so the most important part of that is they pretend that politicians are honest and that they're having a real ideological debate and that money doesn't control anything and that millions of dollars that they get from donors is not at all relevant. That's why they never, ever discuss it on CNN. Do you ever hear segments of, well, on the one hand, Warnock took this much money and Walker took that much money and this donor wants that. No, you don't hear that at all.
No.
You hear about fake issues, not the people who are actually controlling politicians. And yes, to the people in mainstream media, I said people controlling politicians. And no, it is not based on religion or ethnicity. It is based on cold hard cash. Everyone else on the planet knows that if you give somebody a couple of $1 million, they're gonna do exactly what you tell them. The only people who can't figure that out are the people in the news business, okay? So no, you are fake. Everything that you say is premised on fake. And why does this mainstream media do that? Well, they got $17 billion in spending in the last midterm election, and it went all to media. The great majority to television. And golly gee, television reporters and journalists can't seem to find out what's wrong with private interests giving $17 billion to politicians, and that their votes happen to line up with those donors perfectly. Golly gee, I couldn't find that mystery answer to politics. And then the second part of it is related. What does mainstream media, as in CNN, agree with right-wing media, as in Fox, on every economic issue? So what do? They do what Andrew and Anna were referring to. They get people riled up on culture wars. This is the point that Anna's been making for years here. And so while we fight each other on culture wars, and CNN's like, oh, black people are good and gay people are good, and the Fox News says, no, they're bad, and then we fight, right? Transgender people should go in which bathroom, let's fight, right?
Dude,
but meanwhile, student debt relief, and all of a sudden, CNN and Fox News anchors all magically agree.
Yes, exactly.
You shouldn't get student debt relief.
Yes. In fact, like I got people tweeting at me about CVS selling dildos, like which they've been doing for a while now. And it's like, this is not what's ruining your life right now. Understand that. But anyway, that interaction with Andrew and Don Lemon made me remember when I went on CNN, specifically because Brian Stelter back in 2016 wanted to understand, like, is the press failing to really understand the American people? Like, that's what the topic of discussion was. Yeah. I was like, oh, you want me to talk about that? I could talk about that. So I go on. By the way, after this interview, Brian Stelter never invited me back on the show again. He no longer has a show on CNN, but nonetheless, here was that appearance. I haven't seen this video for years, so let's take a look. The same types of components that corrupt our politicians, I think also corrupt mainstream media. So it's really difficult for mainstream, let's say cable outlets, to talk about things like income inequality, wealth inequality, when the advertisers that are funding their shows are the same corporations that want to ensure that the same system continues. So I think when people watch digital media or new media, they get a completely different message. They focus on the issues that matter or resonate more with the constituency. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. So, okay, I have many things to say. First of all, to be fair to Stelter, I rewatched the whole segment, and it was a pretty good segment. And he was the only one that did a segment about, hey, wait, I wonder if the press is wrong, right? Literally the first and only segment ever. And I don't mean like, oh, hey, did we get a part of a story wrong? Like, wait, are we misunderstanding the American people and their frustration? And so credit to him for doing that segment. That's why it was never repeated again on CNN. That's why it took another 4 years for Anna to be invited back on. And only that's because Bernie Sanders looked like he was about to win in 2020. And so it looked like progressives were gonna have power, and CNN caters to power. And that's why Anna and I were invited back onto CNN. The minute he lost Super Tuesday, we have never been invited back on CNN. Okay, so that's how corporate media works, right? But also, furthermore, having watched that entire segment again, man, you go back and watch old clips of Anna, and then you're not gonna be surprised why #Anna was right trends, okay? You were so right, not just about that, but everything in that clip, in that interview from 6 years ago. She talked about student debt relief back then, when no one was talking about it.
Okay, hold, because Scotty Nell Hughes was the conservative on the panel who disagreed with me. There's 2 more videos, so let's listen to her reaction to what I said, and then I think the last video addresses what you just mentioned.
Yeah. Well, she makes some very good points, but honestly, I disagree because in journalism, we know if it bleeds, it leads. And we're not just talking about the physical. You know, when we're $19 trillion in debt, when we have 94 million people out of the workforce right now, we see terrorism issues not only abroad, but here at home. Those are the stories that are leading our headlines. And so a journalist has to have their head completely in the sand if they don't realize that that is what people are watching, and the ratings show that those types of headlines make it. So I actually think journalists do know about the anger. If anything, they've not necessarily tried to feed it, but haven't done anything to definitely try to put that warm and fuzzy stories as their headline.
I mean, she's tackling it from a profit perspective, right? If it bleeds, it leads. And the reason why she's mentioning that is because that's what tends to get eyeballs on your broadcast. But that doesn't, by definition, you're not actually pursuing what concerns Americans the most. You're just pursuing what will get the most Americans to watch your program.
But it goes deeper than that. That's why I thought, man, that is such an interesting segment from back in the day. Because what she's basically saying there is, yeah, the right wing drives the anger into the mainstream media, and then we get you guys to talk about it, and we create more and more anger. Because what are the issues that she mentioned? They were all issues that were manufactured, including immigration, which Anna, I don't know if it's in the next clip or not, but in that segment talked about, at that point there was actually net zero immigration.
Right.
We were losing more people than we were gaining. So pretending that that was a major issue that you should be super angry about was really to get people angry about identity politics. These people that don't look like us are crossing the border. Meanwhile, you're not paying attention to the actual robbery, which is the donors giving to the politicians, and the politicians then giving them billions, sometimes trillions back in subsidies and deregulation and tax cuts, etc. So she is accidentally telling on herself there that we drive the anger and you guys play into it. She
later was rejected by CNN, did not get her own show. And I think she might have a show on RT now. But anyway, final clip for you from that exchange.
A lot of the issues that matter the most to the electorate don't get covered at all. So let me give you a quick example of that.
Yeah.
Student loan debt is one of them. That is impacting our economy in one of the most negative ways imaginable. And we're sitting here having discussions about immigration and building walls. Right now, if you focus on the actual numbers, and this is according to Pew Research, immigration from Mexico is below net zero. What does that mean? That we have more Mexican immigrants leaving the country right now than coming in. And instead of focusing on issues that actually matter to millennial voters, for instance, we're focusing on non-issues in the country. The fear-mongering about Muslims and terrorism.
Yeah, well, that was 100% true. It took 6 years for anyone else to realize that it was true.
Yeah.
And I loved her face there, like, and then she went on to say, by the way, I hate to tell you this, and then she went with more anger.
Right, and
you should be angry at the Muslims and the immigrants and everybody else.
And it's the anger that they peddle, right, which leads to the division in the country, which is what Andrew Callahan was trying to get at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hashtag Anna was right. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.